How's everybody doing? Good? First of all, my name is Juan de Lascurain. I'm from Mexico. How many of you guys have been to Mexico? Nobody. We need to take you on a trip all across the world. Took me like 24 hours to get here, and I'm very thankful for the organizers as well to invite me. I'm a designer, artist. I have two brands. One myself, Juan de Lascurain. The other one is called Dream Big World. And Dream Big World is about inspiring people to follow their dreams. And I'm going to start with a little story because if you had asked me, if you had told me, 20 years ago that one day I'll be traveling the world telling this story and that I will be painting and that my art will be in many, many different countries, I would have never believed you because I had no clue I had the talents that I ended up discovering along the way. And we all have talents. But a lot of times what stops us is the fear. A lot of times we're afraid to really go and follow our passion and follow our dreams. So in 2008, I was coaching tennis in Beverly Hills. I grew up playing tennis since I was 6 years old. I was coaching tennis, coaching celebrities. It was a really, really good job, but I was a little bored at it. I'm going to take one of this. And so one day, I was at a friend's house, and there was a napkin. So we're going to say this is a napkin. There was a napkin and a Sharpie, a black marker. And I was just bored. And I grabbed the Sharpie, and I started making some doodles. I went like this. Never painted before. I was just playing around. And there was a lady, and she was watching me. And she asked me, she said, Juan, are you an artist? I'm like, no, I never painted. I'm just bored. They were talking about nonsense, and I'm like, I'm just. How many of you guys have made little circles on napkins or notebooks? Everybody, right? So that's what I was doing, And she said, you need to be an artist. And I'm like, honestly, I thought this lady is crazy. I played tennis all my life. I was a professional triathlete. I studied business. I'm coaching tennis, and this lady is telling me you need to be an artist. I'm like, no way. So I'm going to put this here for a second. This was the doodle I was making. Even smaller than this. It was just a little doodle. So I left that day, and her voice got stuck in my head. Juan, paint, be an artist. And it was like 2-3 weeks, went by, and that voice was still in my head. So one day I went to an art store, and I realized I needed a bunch of money to buy a canvas and paint. And so I went and I bought a Walmart, I bought acrylic paint, and then I went to Home Depot and I bought a piece of wood. And I made my first painting. It took me about 7 months to finish this painting. But every night I did what I'm doing here. I was just doing little things, I call them doodles. But a white canvas can be a dream. And if you keep on painting, and if you keep on doing it one day after the other, it's amazing where you end up. So these were some of my other paintings. I kept painting, every week I kept painting. And then I started writing that one day my art was going to be all over the world. But when people found out, they told me, you're crazy. Artists don't make money. People started finding out, they started coming to my house and they were looking at the paintings and they were like, hey, who did this painting? I'm like, me. And I told them, I said, I'm an artist now. And they were like, you're going to, artists don't make money, brother. You're going to starve. But inside of me, I was like, I'm not going to starve. one day, you guys will see where I end up. So I kept painting every day. One day I painted my jeans. I was, painting, going along, just painting. I didn't have a cloth, and instead of the cloth, so I just started So that was the pair of jeans that I painted, and I started going out in LA, and people were like, "Hey, cool jeans. Where did you buy them?" I'm like, "Oh, I make them." And they were like, "Oh, how much are they?" And I was like, $400. They were like, "Oh, I want one." I was like, so I started getting clients like that. But after 2 years of painting and keeping my day job, which was coaching tennis, but every day I couldn't coach as much because I wanted to paint. So one day I did run out of money. So everybody that said artists don't make money, okay, one day I did run out of money. But that didn't stop me. A friend of mine was building homes in Beverly Hills, and so he offered me a job. And so I was working with him 4 hours a day, just helping him build. I built the biggest bathroom like you've ever seen in your life, So I worked there 4 hours a day, and then in the afternoon, I went home and I kept on painting. No. But other than painting, I kept on visualizing that one day I was going to be all over the world and that my art was going to be all over the world. But then I would go out and friends were like, "Hey, why do you keep on painting? Now you don't have any money, I had another friend who was the manager of the Apple store in Beverly Hills. One day I went to fix my computer, and she said, "Juan, why don't you take a job here?" I'm like, I didn't want to sell computers, honestly. But there was a little voice inside of me, the same little voice that, told me to paint, told me to get a job there. So I took a job there. The only condition, I asked her, I said, the only condition is that I can come with my painted jeans. Because I knew a lot of important people went to that Apple store because it was in Beverly Hills. And I would be at, it's a magnet, painted jeans. And so one day, this guy came in and he looked at my jeans. He said, "Are you an artist?" I said, "Yes." Opposed to what the lady had told me before. Before I was not an artist, but 1 year later, now I'm an artist. And so he said, "Oh, I need computers." And so I helped him. And I said, "Where are you from?" And he said, "I'm from Dubai." And I said, "Oh, wow, great." And he gave me his business card. Okay, so this guy happens to be the founder of Emaar, the guy that built the Burj Khalifa, the tallest building in the world. I kept his card for about a year and a half. I didn't write him or anything. I just kept it just kept it. At the same time of me working in that Apple store, so at the beginning, like I said, I was just painting with acrylic, on canvas, and I was hanging the art in my apartment, Like I said, then I started using more color. I love colors. Colors are like life. They just brighten up the day. And so one day, the iPhone came out. You guys remember those little iPhones? So when I was playing with it, and I downloaded a paint app, a brushes app. And I started moving my fingers, and I'm like, wow, this is so cool. I can create things like this. Or like this, like my shirt, And I thought, okay, this is very commercial. This might be hard to sell, But these, I can put it on a t-shirt and I can sell them. So I kept on painting on the little phone. Every day, I was just painting. I was working with my friend, construction. I was working at the Apple store. And then I painted probably 15, 20 designs per day. So a lot of these were some of my first designs. Then I decided that I was going to create a brand. Juan de Lascurain was going to be the artist, but then I was going to create Dream Big World, a brand to inspire people to follow their dreams. And I was going to promote 5 messages with everything I did. The first one, discover your talent. Why? Because it's very important to inspire people so they discover their talent and they pursue, what they're good at. The second was to dream big because, it takes the same amount of effort to think small than to dream big. 3, to have faith. We got to believe in ourselves. Even when I took those jobs, and I mean, honestly, my brother and his girlfriend were like, 36 years old, artist, like, what a loser. I mean, you got to believe in yourself and be like, I don't care what anybody says. I'm going to keep on doing this. Work smart and then give back. So I wrote down on a little piece of paper that was my company, my first brand. And I kept going. So in 2011, a friend of mine called me from Mexico City. That's where I was born, but I hadn't lived there for 17 years. And she said, Juan, come to Mexico. I'm like, I was trying to think, should I go to Mexico or should I stay in LA doing construction work, working at the Apple store? I was living in my brother's couch in his apartment. I had no car. And so I'm like, okay, I think I'm going to go to Mexico and see what happens. So I end up in Mexico 2011, and my friend introduces me to my first client for a decoration of, she was having a baby, and she asked me if I could decorate her room. But it was like one little painting and one rug. So I started looking who could print some of my graphic designs. So I finished the room, and she paid me like $150. I mean, that was it. And then I felt like, you know what, I'm going to stay in Mexico. So I went to an uncle of mine who has a lot of money. And I said, this is my brand. Would you invest, in my brand? And guess what he said? No. I said, can I stay in your house just for a couple of weeks? And guess what he said? No. So I went out of his house that day. I had no place to live. I had $150. I had my little iPhone, one bag with all the clothes I had. And I went downtown Mexico City. So that's me with everything I had in life, literally, physically, materially, in 2011. That's a youth hostel. And I went in there. I'm like, hey, how much is a bed in here? Not even a room. And the bed was $5 a night. And I said, okay, I'll take the bed. But I was really happy because I knew that one day I was going to be all over the world and that my art was going to be in many places, but nobody could see it, only me. So every morning I got up and I went to a Starbucks in the nicest area of Mexico City. It's called Polanco, this area. And Starbucks became my first store, gallery, and office. And I'm going to tell you how that happened. So every day I went and I sat in one of the little tables and I was painting on my phone. And whoever sat next to me, I was just talking to them. And it happened that one of the persons that I started talking to one day, she made notebooks. And she asked me, she said, what do you do, Juan? I said, I'm a designer. And she said, oh, you should make some of my notebooks with your designs so you can sell them. And I said, how much are your notebooks? So I made, I'm like thinking, okay, if they cost 100 pesos or $5, how much money I have? So I had enough money to buy 10 notebooks from her. So a week later, she gives me the notebooks. And I'm like, where do I sell them? In Starbucks. So every day I would come in Starbucks. Literally, this is the little tables. I would put the notebooks here. I would sit. And whoever sat next to me, my goal was to sell them a notebook. And I started doing that. I started selling 2-3 notebooks a day. And so after 2 weeks of doing that, I'm like, I'm not going to stay in the little chair, in the little table. So I went to the manager and I said, hey, can I sell the notebooks where people pay? Because there's thousands of people that go through a Starbucks every day. And she said, no. And I said, why not? And she said, because it's not a Starbucks product. When people pay, where's the money going to go? So I thought about an idea. I made a little box and I made a hole on it. And I came back to her one day and I said, hey, what if we put a box with a hole on it? And the money, when they buy the notebook, the money goes on the box. Starbucks will never know, that this happened. And she said yes. And then we put a sticker on the box, and the sticker said 10% of the purchase of this product is going to this foundation. And Starbucks was helping this local foundation. So she loved me. She said, great. So I went from selling the notebooks in the little table to selling them in the counter. And guess how many I started selling per day? I mean, they started selling a lot of notebooks. Then I asked her if she would let me put my art on the walls. That Starbucks, we fitted about 15 artworks. So that was a lot of my art. So like I said, that Starbucks in 2011 became my first little store, gallery, and office. I kept going every day. I mean, I wasn't like, okay, now you sell. No, every day I was there when they opened, and I left when they closed. And I was watching, I was watching if somebody bought a notebook or if somebody was looking at my painting, I would get up and I'd be like, hi, I'm the artist. Can I help you? I would sit them in my little office, in the table, and I would sell to them, These were the first notebooks. That was the first product that I ever sold with my brand. I even had vinyls on one day I came and I said, hey, would you let me put vinyls, like 1.20 meters in the windows? And she said, yes. I mean, that Starbucks was like mine, honestly. Obstacles. Has anybody had an obstacle in their life? Everybody, right? They're part of life. So one day I had enough money to buy me a bike. A few days later, they stole the seat on the bike. And that day I had to deliver some of my prints, And I'm like, okay, I don't care. So I went and delivered the paintings, And what I tell people is like, obstacles are always going to be here. So you might as well just embrace them, like have fun, If you have a horrible day, just laugh. I mean, it's going to get better, I mean, at some point it can't get any worse, At least we're, I'm still alive. I'm doing what I love. But yes, one day I'm going to be all over the world. I'm not going to stay here. So, like I said, I was living in the youth hostel, renting one bed. And one day I'm like, I need to get out of here. So I looked online for rent share apartments. And I saw this ad. It said, share apartment for rent, looking for a professional lady. I'm like, I'm going to live there. Because that apartment was next to Starbucks. And so I called and I said, hi, I want to rent, share the apartment with you. And the lady's like, oh, are you a lady? I'm like, no. She said, well, I'm looking for a lady because I'm a 70-year-old woman and I don't want to live with a man. I said, please, let me go look at the room. I went in and she rented me the room. So I went from the youth hostel. Now I was paying a little more, but I was 5 steps from my office, my gallery, Starbucks. So now I'm going to tell you where I am today, where the brand is today, and everything that's happened. So, Kleenex. Has anybody heard of Kleenex? Okay, so me from that little Starbucks, every day calling, I made a list of the biggest brands around the world. And I started calling the marketing director, and the marketing director said, oh, Juan, nobody knows you. We only work with Disney. I'm like, well, Disney, there was a time when nobody knew who Walt Disney was. So, I mean, I'm going to keep on bugging you until you put me into your boxes, So it took me 2 years, but there's been over 20 million boxes of Kleenex with my designs all over Mexico. If you show this photo to almost every Mexican, they're like, oh, you're in my bathroom, you're in my room, you're in my... so all those people that were like, oh, it can be done. Okay, this is just one example. I'm going to show you some more. This is all the grocery stores, I mean everywhere. People would send me photos from the Uber. Hey, I'm just in the Uber. Here's your Kleenex box. I'm crying, but I'm cleaning my tears with with Kleenex. Okay, so remember the guy from Imar? So after a year that he gave me his card, one day I wrote him and I said, Mr. Alabar, I don't know if you remember me, but I sold you computers. I'm sure he didn't remember me, But I said, I would like to work and do something with you with the Burj Khalifa. And 2 days later, I got an email from one of his managers. They said, hey, when can you come to Dubai? Ended up in Dubai. Okay, so I became the first Latin American artist to have my work displayed in the Burj Khalifa. From one napkin to the tallest building in the world. And everybody said, oh, it can be done. Right? So I'm here to really inspire you. I'm not here to brag. I'm here to inspire you because it can be done. You know, it can. I mean, I'm a total proof. 2011, I was living at a $5 literally bed, you know, and went from a napkin to the Burj Khalifa, but it doesn't stop. I mean, this is not the end. Give me 5 more minutes and you'll see where I'm going. So Dubai, I ended up doing a merchandising line for them as well. So apparel, that's when I started getting into retail. Well, retail, my first, like I said, Starbucks with the notebooks, but so I did an entire merchandising line for the Burj Khalifa. Then I started licensing. Everybody knows here what licensing is? Yeah, so one day, the notebooks, you know, I went to a big department store in Mexico and they wanted 5,000 notebooks, but they didn't want to give me an advance. They wanted me to pay for the 5,000 notebooks, and then they wanted to pay me like 3 months later, and I'm like, okay, sorry, that's not going to work. So I figured out licensing, so I started going to companies to license my brand, like I did with Kleenex. So this is a Belgian company from Belgium who does a lot of different products, from chairs to a lot of decoration items, poofs. Then we started doing beachwear as well. Then this is Ravensburger. It's a German company that does puzzles, backpacks, luggage. So today there's been over 50 licensed products in more than 10 countries around the world. iPhone cases. Apparel. So a lot of different products that have been licensed. Then a book came out. So I started writing when I was 24, and also a lot of people told me, why do you write so much? Because I was writing like three times a week on paper at the beginning. You know, I was 24 when I started. There was no, you know, I mean, I'm not that old, but there was no iPhone, you know? So I had pages and pages and pages of my stories. And I knew one day that book was going to be published. I didn't know when, but 6 years ago, that book, the first book was published. So PHYGITAL store. So then the pandemic came. So then I was in a lot of different places around the world. Then the pandemic comes and everything is like shut down, right? And I'm like, okay, there's gotta be something here that I'm gonna do. So I started designing the idea to open our first PHYGITAL stores in conjunction with our online, store. So this store opened the 6th of January of this year. It's in a place called Los Cabos. Los Cabos is like a very tourist destination, high-end tourist destination in Mexico. And this is the first of many stores that I'm going to open. And still today, people are like, oh, you really think you're going to open all over the world? I'm like, okay, I've been telling you from one napkin, and you still don't believe me? I mean, it's crazy that, people, you show people like, okay, I was there, now I'm here, and they still don't believe you. Yes, I'm going to have stores all over. So this is a little bit of my own stores now with a lot of the products, a lot of the collaborations. And then this is part of the PHYGITAL part that we're doing. So we're doing virtual reality, an animated series with a series of characters that we have. And we're tying that series to merchandising. And the merchandising also has a sustainability aspect. So we're doing a line of beachwear made of recycled plastic bottles. And so each episode that we're doing with the animated series has something to do with that physical product that we're launching in the store. So you will be able to go in the store and watch the animated episode, with the VR, the virtual reality glasses, and then you'll be able to buy the product, right there as well. This is a little bit of that specific line, which is tied into that first episode. And then at night, we turn off the lights, and when we go, we leave the show of the Burj Khalifa playing in the store. So when people are walking by, they can check out the Juan de Lascurain at the Burj Khalifa. This is a shorter just version. And this is a project that I also started developing during the pandemic. And is to develop, I mean, I believe that in the world, nobody teaches us to dream. They teach us to work. They teach us to, you got to go make money because you got to go pay your bills. But really, no one teaches us like to dream. And I believe it's like one of the most important things. Play and to dream, to play, you know? I mean, my life is about play, even though I lived in the, I mean, I told you everything I had to go through, no? And even today, there's obstacles. But if you learn how to play and you learn how to dream, that's the perfect combination to be able to accomplish your goals. And the bigger you dream, there's things that happen in your body. I don't have time to explain that. That's like another conference. But there's things that happen in your body, these reactions that the bigger the dream is, when you start accomplishing, there's this sense of purpose. And when you combine that, that's how I was able to get out of the youth hostel and now be here speaking to you, you know? So this is a resort concept that I'm working with. And the first one, we want to do it in Los Cabos, in this place in Mexico that I told you. But then the idea is to expand it to other parts of the world. And I'm going to leave you with two things. Well, first, anybody likes to paint? You want to come paint? Well, I'm going to leave you with two things. One is this phrase that I wrote when I literally had nothing. And it says, it doesn't matter where you come from or how much money you have. If you have faith, a dream, and you work hard, you can accomplish anything. And the second thing I'm going to leave you with is this. And you, what are you guys doing with your talents? You don't need to tell me. Just think, what are you doing with your talents? Are you happy where you are? Is there something that maybe, you've been putting off because I don't have any money, or people telling you cannot be done? So think about it, and then maybe in a week, like think about it for a week. So I'll give you a week, and then after a week, do something about it. Like if it's painting, start painting. If it's starting your business, even if you have a full-time job, do it 5 minutes a day. Honestly, I mean, I've been doing my brands since 2008. So if you count how many years, it's a lot of years. But there's not been one day that I have not done something about it. Like I said, at the beginning it was 5 minutes, then, 10 hours, then 12 hours. But if you do that, like I promise you, like you'll see the fruit. When you sow a seed, at the beginning you don't see anything. It's all, underground. And then one day, wow, a Kleenex, wow, Burj Khalifa, wow, a store, wow. And then it's like, wow, And so that's why I'm here for, because part of my purpose is to inspire people to follow their dreams. And so this is why I'm here for, to inspire you guys. And you can follow me social media, Juan de Lascurain and Dream Big World. That's my WhatsApp. And, if there's any brands here that would like to collaborate, I'm here today and tomorrow as well. And thank you very much for listening. And thank you.